issue of migration and the boat tragedy in particular. Joining me live now is Sophie Beau. She's the co-founder and general director of SOS Mediterranee. She's worked at Médecins Sans Frontières and has directed social and humanitarian programs for 20 years. Sophie, thank you so much for being with us. There has been so much made just in the past 24 hours or so in terms of whether or not the Greek Coast Guard did enough to intervene in this particular tragedy. What we know so far is that the Coast Guard said that they didn't intervene sooner because people on the boat, I assume the smugglers, didn't want their help. Just walk us through what you think could have and should have been done to prevent a loss of life at such a large scale.
Hello, thank you for inviting me for that day. Well, actually, we are not direct witnesses. We were not present in this area. So what I know from media reports, and that's confirmed, is that a plane from Frontex saw the boat in distress many hours before it sank. And therefore, we can say quite firmly now that a large search and rescue operation should have been launched at that stage as soon as the boat was spotted by this Frontex plane. So definitely there should have been a large-scale search and rescue operation that could have been launched and should have been launched according to the law of the sea, because this boat was actually overloaded with people. And many criteria that are were met that are calling for that are exactly the definition of a boat in distress according to maritime law. It was overcrowded. It was full with people with no water, no food. It was full of women and children, apparently, according to the records we know. And these people were without any hope in the sea.
And just in terms of, I mean, obviously you point out that, of course, you weren't there, you're not a direct witness. All we know is really what the survivors have actually said. But just in terms of attacking this problem from the root cause, I mean, obviously, there are all sorts of issues when it comes to when neighboring ships or ships in the area need to intervene when a boat is in distress. That's all well and good. But of course, there has to be something done in terms of minimizing the causes for people to want to get on these boats that are run by smugglers in the first place. How do you address that aspect of it?
What we can say also is that these people have all left Libya. That was the place of departure of that ship. And we know that for the migrants who are in Libya, there is no hope. It's either they are living from there or it's a very likely death in Libya, or at least torture, slavery, rape, extortion. So they have absolutely no choice than by any means leaving that place, what they call the Libyan hell. And this is a point that we should really stress now. How can we in Europe continue to fund this Libyan Coast Guard and to support them through the European Union when we know what is happening? And unfortunately, we can only deplore the situation in Libya. We can only say that at the moment, Libyan Coast Guards are not able to guarantee any safety for anyone there. So that's also something, that's also a responsibility of the European Union states. Not to continue to support this system, because the more you feed the system with support, with the transfer of money, the more it fits that vicious circle of people who are stuck in Libya, who will by any means try to flee as soon as they can. And they also pay a lot to the smugglers or to the militias, or we don't know exactly who are these people. So the money is coming from the migrants themselves. The money is coming from the European states to support Libya, to externalize the burden of the migration. And this is absolutely a vicious circle, and that in these conditions, it will never stop. So that's also a responsibility of European states not to continue to support the Libyan Coast Guards in this vicious circle.
What is it like to actually survive a disaster and a tragedy of this scale? I mean, you think about, you know, the sort of little bit more than 100 people who managed to survive this. Yes, by many accounts, they are extremely lucky, but there is a psychological impact that comes with that, having lived through a disaster of this scale, especially given what they fled in their own home countries. Whether it is, I mean, obviously a lot of the migrants this time around came from Pakistan, but generally, when people make these treacherous journeys, they are fleeing everything from war to hunger to extreme poverty. And then on top of that, you're dealing with the psychological impact of surviving a tragedy of this scale. What is the greatest need among the survivors at this point, do you think, Sophie?
Well, actually, you can just imagine the condition of these people. They have lived such a big tragedy. First of all, experiencing this crossing for a few days already in very, very complicated conditions. Seeing people around them starting to die within the ship already after a few hours and few days. And then this massive shock of the shipwreck. And then, of course, they are absolutely traumatized, and it's going to be very difficult for some of them to find the resources to get over that experience. We don't know, actually. It depends on the on the support they will get and the conditions also they will have in Europe. Where are they going to be? Are they going to receive on the long term psychological support? Are they going to struggle to get some legal capacity to stay somewhere? All of that will determine how they will manage to survive psychologically to that big tragedy. But for sure, they will need psychological support and they will need assistance. And I think it's our duty also now to assist them in that direction.
Sophie Beau, Live for Us, thank you so much.